What is time? Time is a factor in everybody's life. We all live by it. Every day we go to work. Every day we go to sleep. We go to sleep at a certain time. We wake up at a certain time. We work for a certain amount of hours. Those hours convert into minutes. Those minutes are part of the hours, and those hours are part of the days and into weeks, months, years. And we know that our days consist of 24 hours a day. We know that our weeks consist of 7 days in a week, and so on, 52 weeks in a year, 365 days in a year, and so on and so on, okay? And that's what humans conform to, is that time parameter. It doesn't matter what country you're in. You may use different terms for that time, but you're still living within that continuum of time. Now, when we think of other beings, we don't know what time they're living in what frames they're following, or just how many hours are in what their days and how long their days are. We think of human standards when we do this, and we just don't have any clue. Have you ever thought of if you could control time like extraterrestrial beings could do? You could live for millions of years, billions. Who knows how long a being could live if they can control the time. If you could actually control that time and set a parameter that you wanted to live by for that particular time, if you have that sort of power to do so. And that's basically what we're going to talk about, because a lot of people don't think about it. They just think about what time is to them and how many days. I'm going to be late for work. Oh my God, I got to be there at a certain time. Oh no, I'm going to miss my favorite show. It's on at 8 o'clock and it's 8:10. That's everything. Everything is evolving around that time. Now, what if 1 minute of our time consisted of, well, 1,000 years of time somewhere else? What if?
On Saturday, August 24, 2013, the Davis family was on their way to a family wedding on a farm in Sonoma County, California. Michael and Susan Davis, along with their daughter and grandson, made a stop at the old abandoned barn where Michael grew up as a young teen. The old family barn was along the way. This barn was the same barn where Michael's old photography darkroom used to be when he was a kid. He spent hours in that darkroom developing film and printing pictures he took as a youth. This image is the picture Michael took of the old tack room inside the very large barn. Inside this tack room is where his photographic darkroom was. He spent night after night in this photo room and recalled seeing very odd things inside the large barn where the converted tack room had been turned into a photo lab by Michael in the early 70s. Michael recalled seeing strange beings that he likened to cats with big heads that would climb the poles and rafters in the barn at night. When asked, he related that these cat-like beings used to climb through the large holes in the walls like the ones where the light is shining through in the left back of this image. He related they had a body like a prehistoric animal like in this artist image and had long tails that they would wrap around the poles and used them to help them climb and hold onto the boards and rafter beams. He said that they used to watch him do stuff in the barn and he just got used to them and they got used to him. Thinking back, he said, who knows, they could have actually been part dinosaur and modern day cat, because alien beings like the ones in this barn had the capability of time travel, as you will see later in this episode, and with time traveling capability creating a part cat, part dinosaur hybrid, it would be relatively simple gathering the prehistoric DNA. In light of the subject matter here, all things could be possible. All the items you see in this picture, such as the fire extinguisher, the yellow towel hanging to the right over the board where his father stored his old outboard boat motor on the right. Michael related that his father Bill used that yellow towel to cover his boat motor to keep dust out of the engine. The boxes of cups were left by his father as Bill used to bring them home from work from the Coca-Cola company, and they're still there since 1976, making it approximately 34 years later that Michael returned to this barn and took these pictures. This barn was very similar to a time capsule still containing items of the ones who left them. Once Michael captured the following images, he began understanding why all these items were untouched, as it appears that whoever attempted to clean out this barn was stopped by maybe something that scared the hell out of them. It reminds me very much of the old king's possessions buried in the tomb being protected by unearthly powers to be which chase any who enter away. What existed in this barn that might be chasing people away will soon become evident via the images he captured during this visit. Michael related another odd event that used to happen when he was working inside the darkroom. He stated that sometimes when using his enlarger he'd adjust his enlargements onto the empty photo frame tray, in the dark, using only the light of the photo enlarger. He stated that he'd often get the feeling that someone else was in there with him, then he'd notice shadows of what appeared to be some sort of beings leaning over beside him examining the enlargements with him. He related that when he was young he hadn't a clue as to who or what they were and simply tried brushing the events aside and kept working on his pictures while trying to ignore them. He remembered sometimes being frightened by them in the dark simply because he hadn't a clue as to what was really going on. While recalling these beings, Michael stated that he somehow felt them to be entities of some sort which were in some way helping him with his photocraft while developing a relationship with him at the same time. This darkroom was located inside the large barn in an old tack room which used to be a stagecoach stop where the stage towards the ocean would change horses and stay the night at the old house on the property back in the 1800s. It was a very interesting barn and Michael began understanding what made it so interesting. Because of his experiences with extraterrestrials inside the barn and darkroom at night, he wanted digital photos of the place. He explained to his wife and family that he was receiving mental messages or telepathic thoughts to stop by before while heading towards the wedding. Hopping out of the car at approximately 12:50 p.m. he entered the old barn with his Canon camera ready to shoot photos. Already knowing what shots he wanted, he was prepared before entering. Susie, their daughter, and grandson were remaining in the car while Michael was in the barn, and they were concerned that he'd take too long inside as the wedding was to begin at 1 p.m. and they didn't want to be late. They were watching the clock in the car counting time while Michael was inside shooting pictures. Michael returned to the car 5 minutes later and the family was a bit panicky as they needed to get to the wedding, which was still approximately 15 minutes away from where they were at this point. After the wedding they arrived home where Michael removed the SD card from his camera, then inserted it into his computer to retrieve the images. He shot 10 images while in the barn which contained extremely unexplained items. While dissecting the actual content of these images, Michael was shocked by what he found. The first image revealed the barn stall where his horse was kept as a kid. The rusted-out wheelbarrow in the stall was the same wheelbarrow that was left behind when they moved in the early 70s, and it still remains in that same stall 34 years later when he returned to take these pictures. He also noted that the stall had orbs floating what seemed to be everywhere. The next image was taken down the hall between the first stall pictured and the back wall of his darkroom with yellow tag board for his elementary school science project about NASA and our solar system. Although very degenerated, the solar system poster was still hanging above the yellow tag board directly across from the stall with the orbs and wheelbarrow. At the end of the hall were items left in that barn by his grandmother in the early 70s, right where she left them. In the upper midsection of this photo he spotted an orange orb. Michael's grade 6 elementary school science project was still on the right wall where he also left it when he moved. The one thing he took with him when he moved were the pictures that NASA sent him of the Apollo astronauts, but he left the solar system poster on the back wall. He remembered using the yellow tag board to cover the light leaks that projected through the backside of the darkroom through the cracks of the wall. He also left the blue bedsheet on the upper right, hanging off the roof of the tack room to stop light leaks and dust from seeping through where the cardboard was on the roof of the darkroom. The NASA Solar System School project on the yellow tag board was profiled in the Petaluma town newspaper called the Argus Courier. This image is from microfiche of that project with Michael standing to the right of his project with the solar system poster lying on the table in front of the project, taking another look at the image of the barn stall and re-examining the placement of the orbs with the one orange orb in the center of all the other ones. Michael realized that the placement of all the other orbs around the one orange orb very much resembled a solar system but with more planets than Earth's solar system. Michael realized the extraterrestrials were correcting his solar system poster on the school science project on the upper portion of the yellow tag board covering light leaks on the old darkroom. They displayed the correct solar system right across from the back wall of the darkroom with their solar system, which exists right within our own solar system but in another realm. Could they have been letting Michael know that there are neighbors, however, located in another realm within our same galaxy? Here's another image representing what they're trying to explain. The green represents other orbs in positions in parallel dimensional universes right within our own solar system. Could this possibly answer the question as to how otherworldly beings are capable of visiting Earth without traversing long distances? Is it possible they simply slip into other realms within the same solar system to visit their neighbors? Moving along, to the middle of hall where the science report still hangs, between the darkroom back wall and the stall where the wheelbarrow and orbs are, in the upper center you'll note an orange orb. Upon enlarging and enhancing the orb you'll note that it's a dimensional orb or craft which contains countless beings, and this gateway is what allows these beings to traverse from one realm to another. At this point, the reality of other beings living on the same planet that humans do, only in different realms, could be quite viable indeed. This is why so many people are sighting orbs and crafts here on Earth. Now in the same image, focusing to the right lower corner, you will actually spot a small gray alien peeking an eye around the corner behind the school science project, actually watching the camera flash. You can actually see part of the eye and its upper head projecting around the corner, watching Michael snap this picture. This image was shot down the hall on the east side of the dark room from another direction toward the stall at the east end or back wall of the barn. Examining this image, you'll note what appears to be a very large head which materialized in midair, and it seems to be a gray-blue alien which is basically suspended in midair with countless other beings surrounding it. Examining the center forehead of this apparent gray alien head, it appears to have what resembles a white dove descending downward on its forehead. Michael recalls having white doves also inside this barn as a kid. Is it possible these beings have the capability of turning into an unsuspecting white dove in order to mingle and watch possibly their human counterpart creations? Even scriptures tell of doves descending in order to point out what's godly. Could these beings actually be the angels our scriptures talk about? Could they actually be our creators and they're constantly coming and going, keeping an eye on their creations? Who knows? Is it possible that all the other beings in this image are what is referred by many scriptures as a legion of angels? Whatever the case, it's very, very interesting indeed. This image was captured in the middle section of the same east end or back wall of the barn, right below of where the image of the blue-gray alien was. As you note, this barn is full of extraterrestrial activity. In this image you'll note a very large gray alien in the center with very large eyes. Examining the image further, you'll also notice many other beings surrounding the large being in the center. These images are actually capturing beings in other realms, and Michael was perplexed how this was happening. Being a photographer since he was a child, he was insistent on investigating further, so he further examined the properties of the images on the original SD card to see if he could find out more information about these images. After opening the image properties and examining them, he realized that the 10 images he captured in the barn that day had a modified date and time 1 second before a created date and time. Realizing he'd never seen this on any other image properties in his entire life, he began digging even further. He first contacted Shutterbug Camera Store in Santa Rosa, California, and spoke with a gentleman there. He explained the dilemma of having a modified time 1 second before a created time on the SD card for his Canon camera for 10 images, and that he'd never seen this before and wondered what could cause this oddity. The man related that he's never seen that issue either and told Michael that it was impossible to have modified time 1 second before a created time. He explained that you can only modify an image after it's been created. He asked Michael if his camera does this all the time, and Michael told him it's the only time in his life that he'd ever seen this. Michael explained that he'd been a photographer all his life and has a lifetime of experience and has never seen anything like this, having a modified time a second before a created time, and wondered if it were even possible. Michael asked him is there any way he could think of that something or anything could cause this alteration to the SD card time properties like this. The man stated that the only thing he could think of would be time traveling while taking the pictures. Afterwards, Michael contacted 2 other camera stores in his area only to receive the same response, that it's impossible to have a modified time before a created time on camera properties, as an image must be created before being modified. After the 3 camera stores, Michael contacted Canon Corporation and spoke with a technician there, and after explaining the 10 images with a 1 second modification time before the created time, the technician concurred with the 3 stores that an image can't be modified a second before being created and supported the theory that time traveling would be the only way that could happen if possible. So we all concurred that time traveling would be the only way a reverse time alteration could happen to camera properties recorded onto its SD card. This dilemma raises many questions. If these beings actually altered the time while the images were being recorded, just how much time is actually missing in the missing 10 seconds the camera recorded? With beings who can alter time like this, how long was Michael actually in that barn taking pictures? His family waiting in the car stated he was in there for 5 minutes and hoped he'd hurry so they could get moving on to the wedding. How long could that 5 minutes actually be? How long could 10 seconds of missing camera property time actually convert to inhuman time? 10 hours, 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years? A 10-second ripple in time could be a very long time, and was Michael actually in that barn the entire time? Could they have taken Michael with them to another world? Could they have kept Michael in this other world for years and years with him having no recollection of being gone? Odd things did happen to Michael after this event regarding his physical body, things doctors have no explanations for. When Michael asks his doctors what's going on in his body, they all simply reply, "It's just one of those things." When Michael asks his doctors what one of those things actually are, they stick to their story and maintain that it's just one of those things we can't explain.